This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Today we're going to discover that it's much more than only rock and roll, but we like it.
Amanda Schilz is a Niagara Falls-based writer who has lived perhaps a bit too much. In fact, she says she's had more blood transfusions than Keith Richards.
But while she's turned a corner health-wise, she remains as dedicated to the local music scene as ever. Amanda, welcome to Believe in People.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this.
Well, we are too, because wow, Amanda, you have a very interesting background. As a matter of fact, I would define resiliency as Amanda Schilz, because you've had several wake-up calls in your life. Can you share your journey and where this resiliency of yours comes from?
I was born in a blizzard in February in Niagara Falls, and I grew up with a single mom who helped, who had my grandmother. My grandparents helped us a lot. She married, and I ended up with two sisters. The sisters were wonderful, are wonderful. Parts of that were difficult for me. My stepfather was terrible to me. So after my parents split up, again, my mom was single on her own, working. I was raising my sisters in and out of school. That's when I discovered drugs and alcohol and discovered that I was good at using them. By the time I was 18, I was in rehab for drugs and alcohol. And I have been clean 24 years. I went back to drinking when I was 19. Actually, the day I got out of rehab, I should go back to this because it's a significant part of my life. The day I got out of rehab, my mom's brother passed away. Or we had found out that he had passed away. And he was my best friend. He was the reason that I went to. I didn't go for me, I went for him. Only to find out years later, I did go for me. So that was devastating, but I stayed clean. I went back to drinking at 19. My brother died when I was 20, and he died 13 days before my birthday. So, and he, again, my best friend. Most of the significant men in my life are gone. My father's dead, my brother's dead, my uncle, both my grandfathers. My first love is gone. So that part of it's difficult. But when I lost my brother, I decided that I was just going to drink myself to death. My kidneys failed when I was 25 in a bar. And I've been sober for almost 16 years because of it. When I was 22, I met the father of my kids. We got married at 24. When I turned 35, I had two major heart attacks and a blood disorder called TTP, which basically killed me. There was only a 5% chance I was going to live. I always say we live every day. We live every day and we only die once. Unless you're me, you die twice. So my humor gets me through a lot of this stuff. I had the major heart attacks. The blood disorder caused me to be in the hospital for a month. I couldn't walk. I had nurses changing my diapers, and I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to peel oranges again. They had to slice my jugular vein to save my life. So that's an interesting part of the story. They told me it was going to take me up to 2 years to fully recover if I lived through the first 2 years of recovering. And within 4 months, I had taken my children and left my abusive marriage, started everything all over again, built up my own business. I now own two businesses. One of them is a radio station. One of them is a production company. I'm still on ODSP. I do have a bit of brain damage from, the heart attacks and stuff. My heart is now in mint condition. Still joint pain and stuff, but if you were to x-ray my heart, you wouldn't see any scars. There's no scars from the blood clots in my lungs. It's been an interesting ride, and here I am sitting with you guys.
Yeah, but there are scars from other stuff, and
Oh,
it's funny you mentioned that you get to die twice. I was going to jump in at that point and say, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? But
um,
it sounds to me like you have managed to make it a good thing. How much uh, you've mentioned abusive stepfather,
yep,
abusive marriage,
yep.
loss of a brother. I don't know how he passed away, whether or not he was involved in narcotics or whatever at all, but or your father. But these this is a shit ton of baggage that you carry around with you, and
Yep.
yet you're smiling right now.
Yep.
Why?
Well, perspective, right? Like you can look at the universe and go, why are you doing all this shit to me? Or you can look at the universe and go, why are you doing this for me? And I'm humbled by everything that I've been through. Um, I'm lucky that I'm alive. I'm grateful that I have TTP. I'm 1 in 3 million that have it, and I'm grateful that I have it because it's given me the ability to appreciate my life and appreciate the people in my life. And I wake up every day that I'm grateful to be here. And there's lots of struggles, there's lots of stress, but they only happen in moments. Breaking a cup or getting in an argument with somebody, or that only lasts as long as it lasts. Once it's over, it's over, and you go back to doing the things you're doing in your life. And if I hadn't had those heart attacks and I hadn't had been through the drugs and alcohol and stuff, I wouldn't be the human being I am. And not to you know boast or anything like that, but I'm an all right person, I think. My kids like me.
Amanda, you are. You're a great human being. Hey,
So,
Amanda, can you it's a long name, but can you, for the listeners and viewers, explain what TTP is?
sure.
And then when were you diagnosed with that?
So I had a heart attack in July 2018, and they literally only kept me in the hospital for 36 hours because they blood thinners and sent me home. I could rest. I had my husband at home, so Labor Day 2018, second major heart attack, and I had it on Clifton Hill. Drove home with my family in the car. Got up the next morning and went to the hospital. They did tests on me for a week to find out that my platelets were dropping. So they did a bone marrow test, which I 0 out of 10 do not recommend to anybody. I would rather go through labor with no drugs than go through a bone marrow test again. There's many things I'd rather than go through that. So that took 7 days to get the results back of that test. They sent me to St. Mike's Hospital because my platelets were dropping, and Niagara Falls Hospital had no idea why. So they sent me to St. Mike's, and they started doing TTP treatment, which is plasma transfusions and steroids, right away. Because I had 4 platelets when I walked into the hospital or rolled into the hospital. And they started the plasma transfusions, and they found out I was diagnosed with TTP, which is thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. And what it is I'm a giant Pac-Man board. My blood eats itself when it doesn't recognize itself.
Wow.
So what happened? I'm basically allergic to infections. When my blood goes to fight an infection, if it doesn't recognize the other blood cells around, it will eat the blood cells as well as the infection. So what happens is tiny blood clots form in my veins, and that causes internal bleeding, which can cause brain damage, which I do have, but it's only 22%. So it causes brain damage. It can cause organ failure. In my case, it caused heart attacks. A little bit of kidney problems, but I did recover from that. So Yeah, it's an interesting journey. They gave me 303 plasma transfusions in 19 days,
Wow.
and they gave me a chemotherapy called rituximab within those 19 days. And here I am.
So this is where you've had more blood transfusions than Keith Richards' line
Yes,
comes from.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that's funny that you know that, actually.
Wow.
I've been saying that for a long time. I believe I've had more blood transfusions than Keith Richards.
Well, what a great segue to ask you,
Yeah.
what is it about music that has kept you going throughout all of this?
Oh, what isn't? Everything. The feeling, the vibe, the people, the industry, the lights, the sound, the colors, the flashing, the love. I'm a huge part of the metal community, the metal music industry, and we're a family. We are a family. We're not just a community. We are a family. Every one of us is there for everybody else. We drive each other home. We pick each other up. We grab each other a beer. In my case, it's pop or water. I'm a cheap date. We pick each other up when we fall in the mosh pit. We if one doesn't have a ticket, somebody has one for you. I have a battle vest that's covered in patches from bands that I've seen, and my vest was stolen last year just before my birthday out of my car. And the community came together, shared it over 2,000 times, helped
Wow.
me build a reward. I had friends going into pawn shops in downtown Toronto looking for my vest. I had
Wow.
friends walking around Sherbourne and Dundas because that's where it was stolen from. Um, Offering homeless people money to, hey, if you've seen this vest, we'll give you some money to bring it back to us, type thing. Yeah, for like weeks, people were helping me out, and then I went to a show and I was given two packages, and there was over 100 patches between both packages, so I could rebuild my vest. So my battle vest was actually made by the community, not me.
Wow, that's incredible. And you created this. So, Amanda, you co-own Sofa City Sounds, and you are also an owner of Black Sheep radio station that you just acquired. So, and you're a writer. What came first?
The chicken, I think. So we discovered, I say we, my mom and my grandmother and I discovered that I could write poems at 6 years old. And now, when I was 6, there was no such thing as the internet. So my grandmother and my mom would go to the library and they would rent books, poetry books, and they would look through them to make sure that I wasn't plagiarizing because I was 6, right? What 6-year-old knows how to write poetry? And so they would make me sit in front of them and write poems. And the very first 2 poems I wrote were one was called Babies and one was called Clocks. Those were the very first 2 poems I ever wrote. I wrote a Niagara Falls historical poetry book in 2010. I wrote another book called My Brain Really Works This Way, and it was all the poems that I wrote while I while I was having drug issues. And I'm trying to think of what I wrote after that. When I got into music, I was a comedy parenting book writer. I wrote comedy parenting books.
Oh,
I wrote a book called The Explicit Mom's Guide to Raising Our Perfect Children, which
Is
sold
that
out.
one of is that
is
one
that
of
one
them
of your
behind
perfect
you?
children behind you?
That is one of my perfect children behind me.
So, for listeners,
One
we
of my
have one
fur
of
babies as
Amanda's
well.
children behind with her
This is
new dog.
She was named after music. She's a professional singer. She's only 13 years old.
Mhm.
So I brag about my kids. I love them. I'm very proud of them. They've done very well. So
How would you describe growing up in Niagara Falls? Niagara Falls is different than other places, isn't it?
well, yeah, people do live here. A lot of people, and that's a common misconception. A lot of people don't think people live here. They think that we're bussed into work and then we leave. Yeah, it's funny. I I was very lucky. My mom taught me how to utilize Clifton Hill. So I've always loved growing up in Niagara Falls, because I have a playground, an amusement park right at my fingertips, right? I never have to leave the city.
So for those who don't know, what's Clifton Hills?
Clifton Hill is, it's right at, it's the hill that actually takes you down to the falls. And there's Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. There's mini putting. There's bars. There's restaurants. There's the Sky Wheel. There's mazes. There's all kinds of stuff. So it's great. It's the casino is there. You know, there's nightclubs. It's a lot of fun. Actually, Rock World. I have to mention Rock World. They opened their shop the year that I was born, and they're still going strong. They're a music memorabilia shop. They're local. They're from Niagara Falls, so I always mention them whenever I can.
And one of the 7 wonders of the world is there.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
When I was trying to think, 32, the girls and my ex-husband and I moved to Newfoundland because my ex-husband is a Newfoundlander. And we lived there for a year. It was ocean, my driveway, my house, and then a giant hill. So we lived there for a year, and the whole time I lived there, it's gorgeous. Like, I could watch whales while I was doing my dishes, and it was beautiful. But there's no place like home. And I was, you know, as much as I love the country, I was relieved to come back to the city. I was relieved to come home. I love it here. I've been here my whole life. I like traveling. I like going to other places. I'd like to live in other areas, but Niagara's my home. So my dad's side of the family settled here in 1796. They were some of the first United Loyalists to settle here. And then my mom's side of the family came in 1966. So I'm a 13th generation Canadian, 13th generation Niagara Falls on my dad's side. And I'm a first generation Canadian on my mom's side. I was the first one in our family born in Ontario, in Canada.
It's kind of, I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say that Niagara Falls is sort of like a Canadian version of Vegas, but there are lots of flashing lights.
Yeah.
There are also, it's a border town, which
Yep.
I think needs to be pointed out.
Yeah.
And perhaps as a result of that, there are a lot of distractions that that one could get involved in as a young teenager, such as yourself.
Yeah.
Was that prevalent? Did that have play a big role in how you ended up becoming addicted?
My addiction stemmed mostly from the things that I went through as a child. I was molested from the time I was 4 until I was 12. And my father died when I was 8 years old, and I didn't know him. He died of drinking and driving. My grandfather, my mom's father, he died 6 months later. And a month before my father died, my best friend died. And this was all before I was 10 years old.
Wow.
So my addiction does stem from the things I went through as a child. You know, growing up in that respect, I just wanted something to numb me. Okay. You know, and then growing up, my mom, it was hard for her because she was on her own. It was just her and my grandmother helping, you know, raising us. So my mom would work a lot, and I wasn't great when it came to school and stuff like that. I didn't graduate until I was 27 years old, and I was 7 months pregnant. I couldn't even zip up my gown, but I did it. So, you know, and my younger sister, you know, we've, you know, the way this city runs on the backside has hit our home. We, you know, like Niagara Falls has 75% of Canada's human trafficking go through our town because we are a border town. We do have 4 borders between Fort Erie and Queenston. You know, and one of them is a nexus border, which is a no guard pass. You just come in and out as you please. So, we have seen it. My sister was actually almost kidnapped, and the police luckily found her before anything could happen. But we always grew up aware that those things were around us. And I thankfully didn't have those issues with the trafficking myself. And once things, once my sister was okay, we never had issues with that again because we were very safe. We knew what to look for. We knew who to look for and stuff like that. And this was all when there was no internet. There was no so-and-so is missing on social media. There was no, we were lucky. We were very lucky.
You through all of this, what have you learned?
Come here.
I remember you saying something about you didn't want to regret anything. I mean, you really, you just through your, having, a second chance or third chance at life, really.
Life is precious. We live every day and we only die once. So we should live every day. We live in a weird world where we have regular people just like us control us, right? And at the end of the day, they don't care what we're doing. They don't care who we are, what we're doing, what we're about, anything like that. So just live. Do what you want. Live how you want. Live how you're happy. I regretted everything that I didn't do when I was on my deathbed. Not everything I did. And that's why it only took me 4 months to recover myself. There was a long journey after that because it was myself and 2 children. And, it was difficult. I don't think we live by definition. We live by what we're told. We're conditioned to believe that life is a certain way when it's not. Life can be very magical. Perspective is everything. It's all about how you carry yourself and your vision. We were taught in school that we see things and then we see these things, but we actually see things and then we see things. You think, it'd be nice to run into so-and-so. And then a week later, you see them in a coffee shop. You create that. We create the things that we want to create. And you can think negatively and you can create yourself a shitty life, or you can think positively and you can create yourself a wonderful life.
Okay, so Amanda, I've never really met anyone who has had the opportunity to die twice. And it sounds to me like you are actually taking this gift that you've been giving and making the most of it. Despite the difficulties that you've gone through, why do you believe in people?
The universe always shows me that there's something to look forward to. And it even in the bad, there's good. There's balance. Even in the bad, there's good. People show me every day that not everybody is shitty, I guess. Not every person is a terrible person. There are good people out there. I'm surrounded by them. There are some terrible people in my universe, but again, chaotic balance.
Yeah.
You need a certain level of negativity to appreciate the positivity that you have in your life.
Well said. That's really well said, Amanda. Amanda, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Rock on, or whatever.
Rock on, exactly.
Thank you so much for having
Thanks,
me.
Amanda.
Well, Kev, certainly a perspective has a lot to do with, shifting your mindset and leading your life the way you want to, especially when you've died twice. So I'm so encouraged by her optimism. She has a lot of it, that's for sure.
Well, I'm just very grateful that she was able to share her story about taking a life that was going south very quickly. As a matter of fact, it sounded like her life was going south twice very quickly, and she's managed to turn it around in her story. Is it perhaps an inspiration to those who are struggling with addiction and abuse and all sorts of things like that. If this story has somehow inspired you, or you're in a situation like that, we would urge you to seek some kind of consultation. And again, join us again next week for another enlightening conversation. Thank you for listening to Believe in People.
Thanks, everyone.